Welcome to the episode of War Hero to Superhero, helping militaries, veterans, and first responders transform their lives from the prayer room to the boardroom. As my eyes go everywhere, we are in the superhero battle room. Not just these virtual buttons, but I'm pressing hundreds of other buttons to keep this thing live. I have no studio manager. I am the studio manager. But your job is to go focus on my guest and the content. So Melissa A. Johnson is on with us today. She is a veteran who served her country. You have to guess the branch. Let's see if you can as she's going over speaking, or maybe she snuck in some photos. And now she's empowered our community of women veterans. So we're going to bring her on stage to share her message, and let's see if you can guess what branch she's from. Hey, Melissa, do I have you?
Yes, you do. Just let you know, so you introduced me as last name Johnson. The last name is Washington.
Why did I jack that up massively? So Melissa A. Washington. I'm not sure why I put you as Johnson. Too many guests I interview all the time, so I apologize for that. All right. So the good thing is that we can correct those things. So we'll go do that. All right. So we're going to talk about first of what inspired for Melissa A. Washington to join the military.
Yes. So I was at the time I was going to community college. I was looking to get my certification in early child education as I was teaching preschool. And some other things were happening, and I went and thought I'd want to get the opportunity to get away from everything. So I went and perused that strip mall with all the different branches of service. And the Navy was the one that piqued my interest. The Marine Corps was a definite no. They had that pull-up bar, and definitely something I was not interested in doing or learning how to do a pull-up. And so, so the Navy got me, and it was interesting too, is the recruiter that I had, a senior chief, he said I was the first girl that he put in the military. So the office was a little bit nervous. They hadn't put, a woman in the military, even though he called me a girl. So it's quite interesting. They did give me some misinformation, but I think that happens with anybody.
Interesting. Yeah. I guess it's still sort of uncommon, like in some senses, because even looking at 2024 stats, it's 19% in the Air Force that are ladies, and you go to the Marines, it's a little bit less. You go in the Army, it's about the same. And then you go to the Space Force, well, we're non-existent in that particular regard. So it must be sometimes difficult for these maybe smaller. Were you from a smaller city at that time?
No, I grew up in the San Francisco area in the East Bay, but you got to remember too, this was over 30 years ago.
I wasn't going to guess on age on that one. I've already jacked up your last name already on live, so I wasn't going to go do age. I'm not going to get too waxed today. So over 30 years, that's amazing. So we were going to ask how long were you in? You said like 30 plus years ago, but what were the years you were in, and then when did you get out?
Yep. So I joined September 91. And my first duty station was a rescue salvage ship out of Little Creek, Virginia. And I was a storekeeper and did a 6-month deployment to the Mediterranean. And as I mentioned before, I'm from California, wanted opportunity to come back to California. And also I had met who would become my husband in A school. He's a Marine, and he was stationed on the West Coast. So I was looking for opportunity to come to the West Coast. Went down to 32nd Street in San Diego on board a destroyer tender, did a 6-month deployment on there. And then in 1994, President Clinton was downsizing the military, and I raised my hand as I wanted to get out because I was going to marry this Marine who was going to retire from the Marine Corps. So I got out September 94. We got married October 94, and he deployed November 94. So we just celebrated our 30-year anniversary.
Ooh. Man, so that was a really, really like super fast and super short, but now a super long, because you have multiple statuses, if I remember correctly. You got the veteran, and then you got the mil spouse, and then you're also serving on Alliance, and then you authored, and then you speak, and all these other things. So, man, I always thought it was way longer that you were in. I didn't know it was only just a few short years.
Yep. And then my husband retired after 21 years. So being the male spouse at the time, and also too being a daughter of a veteran. My dad served in Vietnam.
So you have almost every role that is given to us in our lives, just from entrepreneur to author to speaker to mil spouse, vet spouse, been a veteran, and everything else. Man, you got it all there. But how was the transition? Because you actually made two transitions. So you had to make the first one in 1994, super quick, and you made the transition from like being veteran and now being married, male spouse. But then you said about 21 years in, then your husband got out. So now you're the vet spouse and then getting out of there. So if you can expand on both those transitions, we'd love to hear about it.
Absolutely. So when I transitioned out of the military, and like I mentioned before, I mean, I literally, I walked off the ship, and the next month I'm now a male spouse. I'm not no longer active duty, even though I did reserve time. And then he deployed. So that transition of, finding my own identity, I really didn't consider myself a veteran at that time. My dad's a veteran. I mean, he was in Vietnam. That's a veteran. So I more identified too as having served on active duty, and now I'm a Marine Corps wife. And also too, I always like to share my first job out of the military was working at a floor cleaning company, and started as office manager and then came into sales. But the only reason I got the job is I knew how to operate a floor buffer, because in the Navy, you stripped and waxed the decks. So those are some of my transferable skills. Granted, there are many other transferable skills there. So then my husband retired. Now he's been retired now, 16 years. So then we transitioned from, being on active duty. Now he's retired, we're veterans, and, how to, utilizing our benefits, and then me transitioning, starting the Women Veterans Alliance. So there's, we're always transitioning, right? Different things that are happening with me. So just really just taking that transition. And I feel too, with all of my different hats that I wear and different experiences, that really truly helps me help our women veterans a lot better, of having these different experiences that I've had.
Yeah, so it sounds like you've been through a lot of those experiences. And before we get into the most recent experiences, we're going to do a quick commercial break. We'll be right back.
We all struggle in life. No matter the barriers, we do not need to stay there. Each day is an opportunity to step into better health. Each day is an opportunity to step into wealth. Each day is an opportunity to step into dreams. Live Good, the Global Wholesale Buyers Club, empowers all these steps and more. Ready to be empowered? Grab the link to learn more. You have served. No matter if it was in the military or civilian service, you deserve to live good. Live good in health. Live good in wealth. Live good in so much more. At Live Good, the Global Wholesale Buyer Club, we empower you to take your mission to the next level. Are you ready to live good?
Welcome back. We are interviewing Melissa A. Washington. I got it right this time. And she's going to come back on the stage to talk about the many different transitions that she went through, but specifically how she made a pivot with her current Women Veteran Alliance. So we're going to bring her back on stage. Hey, Melissa.
Hey, Daniel.
Got it right this time. So only jacked it up once. Good job. Good job. All right. So we're going to talk about your pivot in the Women Veteran Alliance, or any of the other pivots, because I looked at your bio and looked at your title. You have so many, but that's the one I always think most prevalent when we met. So I was thinking, how did that all get started with the Women Veteran Alliance and that pivot?
Absolutely. So 10 years ago, I was looking for an opportunity to network with other women veterans in more of a professional setting, and wasn't really interested in the traditional legacy groups. So January 2015, I got about 20 women together at the local El Torritos. I'm here in the Sacramento area. Had our first meetup, and we had all different branches, officers enlisted, and we were at this long table there at the restaurant. And it was I always get goosebumps really thinking about that night, because these women, most of them didn't know each other, and we're laughing and crying. I mean, we could have really shut that restaurant down. I mean, that's how it was happening, because women hadn't experienced that, where they were able to connect with other women that served. So that night, we agreed that we'd meet the third Thursday of every month. And I said, I'll find a restaurant, we'll get a speaker. And so what started as a monthly meetup, Sacramento, and that's how it all started, then evolved into Women Veterans Alliance, and then now evolved into our Global Alliance, because we're now serving women veterans globally.
Wow. So it literally started in a restaurant. You just grew to a global platform. I'm like, I think that's my problem. I need to go start this at a restaurant. That's why I need to go figure that out. That's amazing that you've grown it so big. Because, like I said, you were the famous person passing me by when we went to Mick a few years ago. And I'm like, oh, you're the one person on me because you're doing such amazing things. And it's just like, it just went from a simple restaurant meeting to go over in connection now to this global platform. But you must have a lot of pressure and a lot of tough times coming with all the things that you're going over and managing and everything else. So for the 10 years you've been doing this and all the other things you do, even managing a cat live on an interview, because my cat would not manage that well, what's your secret fuel of doing with this pressure and tough times, especially with such a packed schedule and so many things that you have on your plate?
Well, one, I'm a very organized person, and actually, was speaking of Mick, I just spoke at Mick about intentional living and productivity hacks. So I'm very intentional about where I spend my time and what I do, and also being very productive, because that helps. So then that takes less of the stress off. So that way, when something does happen, I'm able to handle it a lot better. And like I always say, it's always how we handle the situation, because we know stuff's going to happen, and how we can best handle it. So me being a very organized person does help. But also too is knowing that this is not my work. This is my purpose. And I am here with that. And I know I've been placed here for a reason. And that's what fuels me every morning. And also too, to be able to, get that information out to our women who've served, because a lot of them don't know. And so we need to make sure that we're getting that information out. And I love what I do. And it's very important work.
I'd like to expound on two things. So I'm going to do the productivity part first and then the calling mission second. So on the productivity side, can you give us like one or two things that you use uniquely that maybe our audience can go over and use to be productive? Because there's a lot of tools out there. What do you go over and use to stay productive?
Well, one of the things that I use Outlook for my email, and I have 6 different email addresses that I manage. So it all goes into one place. But also too, within Outlook, it's a calendar. And of course, Gmail has a calendar. So everything is color coded, but also too, my family uses the calendar. So that way, if my husband has an event in the evening or my daughter's got something, everyone's trained to send a calendar invite. So that way we see what's happening. And it makes it easier too to plan things that are happening if we have everybody utilizing the calendar. And then I can code things if it's family, if it's time, self-care. And that's another thing too, is making sure that I also have self-care and at least more than one time on the week. So that's a good thing too, is the productivity, is the calendar of putting everything on there. And that's something you can easily do. You just got to get in the habit of doing it.
So it's kind of interesting. The tools that we use at work can be used at home, and just going and putting the right mission to it. Now, speaking of mission, you said this was like
Yes.
a mission and a calling for yourself. Like, what made you decide that? Because a lot of things, I interview veterans from all different spaces and places, and you don't hear those words used often. And then sometimes a lot of us don't know what direction to go, especially when we get out. So how did you discover this was like your mission / calling for yourself?
Um, so I'll take it back. So when I started this group, the intent was for this to be a local meetup. That was easy for me because I was doing other things, but then it came to the realization that God put me here for a reason, and all of the things that I've had in life have been these stepping stones for me to be able to be successful in what I'm able to do. So this is my purpose. This is my ministry. And I like to call it that. I know sometimes people, we get weird about faith and other things, but this is what I'm here to do. I'm here to provide fellowship to, our women, provide space for them to be able to have that camaraderie, to be able to break bread with each other. And that's something very important.
Yeah, that's one of the unique things that we do at War Hero to Superhero. We added is from the prayer room to the boardroom. And there's actually a beautiful book that we use called Chazon, Chazown, to actually discover your calling and your mission. Because we do a lot of things sometimes out of like reluctance, or we do it because somebody tells us to do it, or hey, it's the best thing available, or it brings in the most money. So yeah, you're one of the first that has called it in that particular regard. So that's why I wanted to expand on. That's a beautiful thing, because when we listen to ourselves, it might last for a season. We listen to God, it lasts every single season, and it can go
Ab-
through the good and the bad. So with our last question before we close out, is this is our one that spins people's heads. So we always give a prep in the background and whatnot. 3 superhero tactics. So you're on with the elevator with somebody, let's say Mick, and you only have like 90 seconds. Either thinking of maybe your past self or maybe somebody that you interacted with, Mick. If you had to give them just 3 quick tactics to take them from surviving to thriving, what would you give them?
Well, one of the things I always like to share with people is you miss 100% of the shots you never take. So that's a tactic, right? Because we can get so caught up with, oh, I don't think I qualify for that, or I can't make that call to that CEO or to that person. So we gotta take the shot, and that's a key thing, and just in life, right? So if I didn't take a lot of these shots that I've taken, even these last 10 years, I wouldn't be where I'm at. But if you're not comfortable with taking that shot, then how can you be prepared? And that's where, mentorship and coaching can come in, to be able to help those individuals with that so they can take that shot.
All right. Awesome. 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 So those are beautiful and quick and powerful tactic there. Thank you, Melissa, for going over and joining us. I love that you able to come on the show, flex with some of my sub questions, and also give you the floor one last time. So if you want to talk more about Women Veteran Alliance, or go over and uplift something else that you're currently doing, and then we'll close up the show of credits. So thank you for joining us.
Absolutely. So if anyone's looking to connect with us, you can easily Google Women Veterans Alliance. You'll come to our website. We've got all kinds of great information on there. We also, my nonprofit arm is Women Veterans Giving, where we award quarterly a small business award to a woman veteran that's looking to start or expand her business. So if you're an entrepreneur, you definitely want to apply for that. And again, just go to the website. We've got all kinds of directories. I do coaching calls. You can find other women veteran organizations on our website as well. We've got a store. You can spend a lot of time on our website with all the information that we have there to make it easy for not only just our women veterans, but those that support our women that have served.